Seconded. Any debate? All in favour?
Aye.
Against? That's carried. Thank you
Thank
both
you.
very much for coming up. And to the team that are here. Great. VO, do you want to come on up?
We'll leave the table. That's for you to find out.
Tēnā koutou katoa. Thanks for the opportunity to formally present to you the venue's Otautahi draft statement of intent for 24-25 and subsequent years. Firstly, let me introduce those from VO that are here with us today. I've got on my left Caroline Havitia, CEO. On my right, Danny Schroeder, General Manager Commercial. And behind me somewhere, I've got two of our board members, Susan Goodfellow and Brent Ford. The draft SOI has been provided to Council in response to the letter of expectations issued by you. It is not our intention today to drag you through the draft SOI on a line-by-line basis, and I think I can hear your sighs of relief. You and your staff will do that and respond to VO in due course. Rather, today I'm going to hand over soon to Caroline to use a number of slides as talking points to highlight the principal features of our draft SOI and to outline the direction in which the company is heading. Suffice to say that VO is in a very exciting and vibrant period. The climb out of the dark days of COVID, if I can call them that, in respective events is well nigh over, and the fantastic venues under the control of VO are now showing their massive potential for the city. And of course, the jewel in the crown is yet to come, the completion and opening of Te Kaha in almost exactly 2 years from now. This will bring a completely new dynamic and complexity, if you like, to Christchurch, but it's also going to, as I say, be the jewel. Much of VO's backroom activity, if I can call it that, over the next couple of years is focused on that, making sure that Te Kaha is developed to deliver on the investment case, and making sure we are ready to deliver the maximum benefits to our city and our region from not only having the best and most modern stadium in the country, but also from the wider complementary portfolio of venues that we will have and operate in the city. With that introduction, I'll now hand over to you, Caroline, to lead us through some of the main features of the draft SOI.
Lovely, thanks, Gil. It was going to be good morning, but it's now good afternoon. So look, the purpose of today, as Gil has said, is to take you through Venues Otautahi's aspirations for the next 3 years. Obviously, we will take the SOI as read, but to talk a little bit about our strategic framework. So essentially to talk through where we're heading and how we're going to get there, and to cover off some of those strategic challenges and opportunities that will come to fruition along the way. And we'll take a particular deep dive into a couple of areas, one being sustainability, and that's all aspects of, so environmental, social and business sustainability, as well as to take a little bit of a look at economic impact, particularly around visitation and direct and indirect economic impact from local procurement. So at a high level, obviously our VO statement of intent reflects our strategic framework. So it is aspirational, but it is achievable. This is the first year, thank goodness, that COVID has not been reflected as a material item. Yes, there's a tail, but it's a tail we no longer want to think about. But we are also prepared for adversity in the future, and that's something that we have learned through those dark days. This is the first time we've got a consolidated financial position with the inclusion of Te Kaha operational from April 2026. And also our SOI naturally reflects the Council's draft strategic framework and our letter of expectation. What it doesn't reflect is a definitive position when it comes to event attraction funding. Now, that isn't a game changer for us. It just will have an impact on our P&L as we work out the next 3 years. But obviously, we'll do that in the coming months around how we will continue to deliver our mandate to fill our venues that we are lucky enough to be responsible for. And just one other aspect that we have added to our mission, which is to add the environmental aspect to our mission. So to strategically manage and leverage the venues to deliver social, cultural, environmental and economic benefit to the region. So a high level look at some of those strategic challenges and opportunities, and we'll come to some of them again at the end. But obviously our strategic challenges are the volatility when it comes to the economy. We all know what rising costs look like. We're all lumbered with them. We can see the impacts of those, and we are the same. And so what we're considering is, how do we manage that? How do we offset that? How do we pass on what is realistic to pass on, and how are we being creative about growth and diversification to continue to offset those increasing costs? On balance, we are aspirational when it comes to sustainability, and we will come to that in a little more detail. But we have to acknowledge there are high costs to deliver our aspirations, and we have to find ways in order to achieve those aspirations, because they are fundamental and part of our strategic proposition. We are still cognizant of increased local competition. We will have a wonderful suite of venues here in the city in 2026, and we already do, but we have to maintain our ability to fill all of our venues and be strategic in the way that we do that. The extended operation of Apollo Project Stadium continues, so we're on a countdown. And look, that's not really a strategic challenge, but it is something we have to be cognizant of. It has been around longer than intended. And obviously, event attraction strategy. So how can we be confident about developing a long-term strategy for the attraction of events for our suite of venues now, but into the future? And then looking at our strategic opportunities. So growth and diversification being one. We acknowledge that we have all of our eggs in one basket at points in time. So how can we continue to grow the business? How can we continue to diversify our revenue streams to continue to offset the requirement for shareholder operational contributions? We want to get to a point where that is no longer required. Capital and strategically managing the assets is always going to be relevant, has to be. But operational support, we would like to get to a point in time, if we continue to grow and diversify, that is no longer required. Aspirational, yes, but we're hoping achievable. Te Kaha, of course, commercially and operationally is a massive strategic opportunity, and we'll see some of those numbers as we go forward in our presentation. Building accessibility and inclusivity in the strategic management of the assets we have now, and obviously also in the future. Regional contribution, how do we continue to grow the economic impact through not only visitation to events at the venues, but through our Celebrate and Source Local procurement policy. Collaboration and partnership, how do we continue to collaborate and develop strategic partnerships that change the historical nature of some of those arrangements that we've had in the past, that actually grow the opportunity? How are we doing things differently? Because we can't continue to rest on a traditional model. We have to look to shift the paradigm of what is quite a traditional industry that we're in. And fundamentally, people and protection. We have to make sure that we have a culture that enables our people to perform at their best, to feel good and well when they come to work. We live in a world with events, with unsociable hours, we work long, hard hours away from our families, and we have introduced risks, the likes of many members of the public and many third parties that help us deliver our events. And that talks to protection as well. How are we making sure that we're keeping all of the people involved in our venues safe? And in the interest of time, I'm not going to labour all of our delivery and enabling pillars. And I think you've had our presentation prior, so you would have seen a little bit more detail. But essentially, we have 4 delivery pillars and 4 enabling pillars. So 1, growth and diversification. That's about increasing revenue, de-risking our business so we can advance in the face of adversity. and making sure that our venues are highly utilised to their utmost. Client and guest experience, we always want to make sure that we're focused on an enhanced experience for our clients and our guests. That's about providing a wonderful experience, it's about the retention of business, and it's about the building of our reputation as well as the city and council's reputation. Innovation, technology and data, so obviously something that is increasingly important. How are we using the data that we have, how are we growing our database, and how are we using those insights to grow revenue and understand our customer base to not only enhance their experience but grow that revenue line. Building system resilience. Obviously, you know what it's like with any organisation, you can have a lot of information in people's heads. So how are we building systems and building those platforms that we have resilience in our system to protect the business for the future? And obviously technology can deliver efficiency. How are we streamlining our operation through the use of technology? And celebrate and source local does obviously what it says on the tin. We talk a lot about it. So how we continue to grow that local portfolio, growing local spend, making sure that we're reflecting that regional aspiration, our culinary innovation. It is the thing that does set us apart from the rest. And that also connects our communities with the venues. And then our enabling strategies. So people and protection, we've talked about how we build in capability for the future. We need to be hitting the ground running when we get to 2026, where you'll see later on that we have about an 86 to 90% increase in revenue. So we're almost doubling the size of the business overnight, which is awesome, but we've got to be able to deliver it. How are we enhancing our culture, and also how are we making sure that we are all safe and well, and that's everybody associated with the venues. Sustainability, and again we will talk about our environmental and our carbon reduction roadmap, but how are we continuing to reduce that carbon footprint to achieve that 2030 target? How are we building our social sustainability framework to continue to deliver and enhance the social fabric of the region? And business resilience, how are we making sure that we have a long-term financially viable business that continues to reduce any requirement there is from yourselves, the shareholder, but can advance in the face of those adverse events that will always come in the future. Venues, so again, we are nothing without the venues that we own and or operate, so making sure that we have strategic asset management plans in place, preventative management and maintenance schedules in place, and ensuring that we maintain the value of those assets on the balance sheet. Building in those accessibility and inclusivity aspects as well. So with Te Kaha, it's been a wonderful opportunity to have a greenfields so we can make sure that the venue is accessible and inclusive to all and enables that same experience for every member of our community. We're doing the same with the town hall, with the arena, with the temporary stadium, as much as we can, albeit slightly more constrained when you already have a venue that's built. And then lastly, obviously safety and compliance. Those buildings have to be safe, they have to be compliant, and they have to be operationally functional. And lastly, collaboration and partnership we've talked about. So how are we strengthening the relationships that we have? How are we being more strategic about those partnerships? The Warriors is a good example, a 3-year partnership. How do we get more of those types of partnerships? How do we build longer term partnerships, not only with sporting bodies, but bringing entertainment here as well? And of course, shareholder confidence. We want you to trust and have confidence that we are working in the way that you would like us to work, that we are in the direction of travel that you are on also, and that you are as proud of us as we are to be part of the council family. So I probably won't talk to all of these because I've pretty much just rattled them all off. But look, there's time to go through this in more detail. We will have time in the future when we to actually get into some of these, because it is a really valuable thing for us to do, is to take you through some of those strategic objectives and the initiatives that underpin those. But one area I did want to highlight is obviously environmental sustainability. There's no secret that we had an issue not too long ago at Hagley Oval. No secret there. We acknowledged that that wasn't good enough, and we can only but respond in the way that we can to get ourselves to a point that is achieving these aspirations. Waste, albeit contributes 0.6% of our carbon footprint is a massive challenge, but it is a massive opportunity. But it is tough, right? To give you some examples, so we had an 80% diversion from landfill for the Super Rugby season last year. Now, for each event, that costs us between $3,000 and $4,000. Now, we do 450 events a year. So if you if you take all of that, now yes, not every event is going to cost that much, but we've also had a quote at about $9,000 for sorting. So we have to just be cognizant of our aspirations and our ability to achieve those. So at the minute, we're working through our waste diversion strategy, which is the platinum version, and how we actually financially model where we can recoup some of those costs back. And we can leverage volunteers, we can leverage other ways to do it, and we will do it, but we just have to acknowledge that we are, at the minute, working through how we will deliver what we're going to deliver up here. But I just wanted to say that, you know, there's no secret that we acknowledge that what happened at Hagley wasn't where we want to be, and certainly wasn't our proudest moment, that's for sure. But there's kind of 5 aspects, and as I've said, this is what we're working through at the minute. So 1, do we have the right infrastructure to enable the right behaviours? And that's capital investment. 2, do we have the right process? And that's where we have to leverage our third parties to help us do that. 3, are our people engaged and are they educated to help our guests and our clients do the right thing? 4, what does that investment look like? And 5, how are we going to track and monitor? So we've invested in a Green Halo software to help us track and monitor all of our environmental footprint and how we're tracking against that 2030 target. But you'll see in this roadmap, yes, there's the big material items. So the arena heating, for example, we've talked about. Now, the arena as a building contributes 50% of our carbon footprint at the minute. And 39% of our entire carbon footprint are the diesel boilers there. So built into our asset management plan is a replacement of that. So that, you know, that's a big chunk along this path. But some of those other things that take a little bit more time, like making sure that we do have water meters so we can measure our water and then look to reduce that, that's things that are taking time. We're in the middle of a energy efficient lighting replacement at the arena at the minute. So all of these things are being built into our carbon reduction roadmap. And we will be reporting to you on a quarterly basis, as per our statement of intent, as to how we're tracking against that. As we all know, some things are more achievable than others, and we'll rely a little bit on grid decarbonisation to get us there as well, and we will be needing to buy some of those renewable energy certificates to knock off that last kind of 20%. But that is what it is. I think we'd rather do that than do an offset. It feels more meaningful. And then just a quick deep dive into regional contributions. So we talk about it a lot, but our reporting now extends not only to the direct impact of local procurement of food and beverage, but also local services, suppliers and contractors. So when you add that to those estimated visitation numbers, it is a material contribution to the local economy. And you'll see there in 26, 27, the game really does change. So close to 100 million when you look at visitation, direct procurement and local staffing as well. And then lastly under there you'll see those targeted guest numbers. And it's nice to see, albeit we could probably be slightly more aspirational in those SOI targets, we are obviously achieving well beyond what those targets are when it comes to the number of people coming through those community-owned assets, which is pretty awesome to see. And obviously in 26, 27, that's closer to 800,000 and likely more. And compensation sort. So obviously you have seen our statement of intent. It aligns with the draft LTP. Our capital supporters as per our asset management plan across those venues that sit on our balance sheet, obviously. And as I've said, this is a consolidated financial position, which is inclusive of Te Kaha from 25-26. We've talked about it again a lot where our operational support is prioritised. So the operational support of 3.25 million that comes to Venues Otautahi, 200 of that is for the continued debt servicing of that remaining 2.8 million. The remainder of that Lancaster Park loan has been paid off, but obviously we're deferring a smidgen of that. And so that 3.25 million covers 52% of the uncontrollable costs in managing the assets. So repairs, maintenance, utilities, rates, etc. Those are the costs that we cannot control. They continue to be outgoings unless we were to shut those doors. Highlighted obviously in our, and you'll see it in that chart and in our statement of intent, is the criticality of those subvention receipts that offsets what would otherwise be a funding requirement. And then obviously you'll see reflected in our sort of operational, our finance performance targets, that we are wearing those Te Kaha pre-opening costs at the minute, and we're doing that in support of obviously council over the next few years, and that'll be recouped in 26, 27 when we open. And I've touched a little bit on this, but obviously those challenges, so high inflation and volatile economic environment, there's no secret here. We've now seen a 17% increase across the last 2 years in the living wage. We employ around 600 casuals, so that is a material impact for us. And we're just figuring out how we navigate our way through that. Again, there's only so many costs that we can pass on. Utilities, we saw a 20% increase in this financial year. We're expecting similar next year. Rates we obviously know about. Insurance, $1 million extra this year, and then we're forecasting another 20% increase in our next financial year, which is taking it from 2.4 to 2.9 million per annum. And we've already talked about our cost to deliver our sustainability aspirations. But on the other hand, the opportunities are great. And so Te Kaha operational, we've got a forecast 86% increase in our operating revenue from 26-27. And on balance, only a 64% increase in operating costs. So the commercial aspects of Te Kaha are stacking up with vengeance. The strengthening of our current and formation of strategic partnerships we see as a great opportunity and a strategic one. And obviously you've seen in the draft LTP, now that we have a more detailed design, we can reflect that in the whole of life cost modelling. So there's a $16 million saving in operational support needed in this draft LTP versus the 21-31 LTP. And then obviously asset ownership of Te Kaha is something we can talk about at a later date. In terms of our draft to final, obviously we've got a couple of months left to go. Clarification of where we may need to meet some of those event attraction funding requirements will be reflected in our P&L, but noting that that won't just be a straight outlay. We will be negotiating different commercial arrangements for the attraction of events and never wavering from our commitment to fill the venues that we are lucky enough to own and operate. We'll have a collective review with Council of our operational performance targets to make sure that they are meeting, obviously, our aspirations as well as aligned with your expectations of us. We need to work through the living wage. We are wholly committed to that, but how we actually navigate our way through what is a pretty material shift and the impacts of that insurance renewal. We've built in what we're thinking, but we still just need to finish that off. And that is that. It's a lot of talking from me. So open to your questions. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much for that. That was really comprehensive, but a really good update. I've got Andre and then Aaron.
Thank you. Are you able to provide any comment around the South Island NRL team bid? I think what many of the public don't necessarily realise is how strong the bid is compared to the others at present, but also the fact that it could potentially even be more lucrative than the existing Crusaders. It's more home games a year. NRL crowds are on the up, Super Rugby crowds are on the decline. What are you able to comment on what work is going on, basically?
I can and I can't.
Yeah, understood.
So there's obviously more than one bid in the market at the minute, and you know we're working with both bids. Obviously, we're not going to align ourselves with one or the other. Ultimately, having another home team at Te Kaha, and particularly in NRL one, where it's 12 to 14, I think, home matches, is hugely advantageous. What it does is not only it builds economic contribution, it builds value when it comes to the likes of sponsorships and naming rights. There's a lot of eyeballs on those games, and that's where there is value. So wholeheartedly, we're excited about the opportunity, noting that we absolutely love our partnership with the Warriors. But it could be a really awesome opportunity for the city. So we're obviously we're open to both bids, and we'll give them all of the information they need to inform predominantly their financial model, and then we can get more into the semantics of it once if anybody is successful.
Yeah, and it's a tricky one. I'm confident we don't need to remain monogamous with the Warriors, is what I've decided. This is possibly getting into the weeds a bit, but there was media coverage of it, so possibly need to talk about it. But the recycling at Hagley Oval, I happened to be there for at least part of each of the 4 days there, and people do not necessarily know what goes in a recycle bin. For example, they might think that a Fritz Wiener bit of cardboard with sauce all over it can go in there. So, just a question: have you considered, most of the recycling is cans, right? That's all the drinks. Have you considered a can-only bin, which says cans only, maybe even the colour of a can is the bin?
Maybe even a can.
Yeah, even a great big can. Yeah.
Just
I completely get the sense that we're probably getting into the wee bit of designing how VO needs
Well,
to operate rubbish bins.
Yeah, no, I think, look, what happened during that event itself was an error. But what I can say, and what I've said before, is investing in the right infrastructure is important. That's what I mean by the right bins. And 2 is education and engagement. So we need to have our staff educated enough so they can educate our guests. And then we need to make sure that the right thing is happening at the other end.
Because what's just been mentioned is a sorting cost, right?
Yeah.
But if there's most of the recycling from cans is a can-only bin.
We
Exactly.
don't own that can idea as well. If you want to use it, it's
Yeah.
All right.
Just write it down. Yeah.
No, that's noted.
Yeah, that's it.
Aaron, and then
Yeah. So, what did you mean by Te Kaha asset ownership?
So there's an opportunity in the same way that the town hall and the arena sit on our balance sheet, but that's something obviously that council can consider. We've got a paper in at the minute, so that's obviously something not for now. I think it's just something for.
But you
council
see
to
a
consider.
savings for someone somewhere through that.
Yes, yeah, subvention receipts.
Yeah. Okay. And then, so you are running the Te Kaha question again. You're running the whole stadium. Or do you run the whole block? How does that work? And what are the opportunities in and around that?
Yeah, so obviously under our remit is really the precinct, but those that area around what's really the public realm at the minute, which is that area around the stadium. So where we see opportunity there is kind of fourfold. One is there are 2 retail tenancies that are in the stadium itself, and we're just working through the valuation of those at the minute. And in the middle of the year, we'll go out for expressions of interest around activation. So that's around driving visitation outside of event day, breathing life, breathing heart into the precinct. Secondly, fan zones. Now, they're obviously activations when it comes to actually having events, but then what events could we hold outside the stadium? So that, again, there's life, there's heart. You know, the stadium can only do so
So you're
much.
currently going to be in charge of all of that space, or you are?
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
The broader precinct
So
opportunity.
you pay the maintenance bill as well then?
Yeah, I think you might. But the broader kind of opportunity is in what's around there. You know, we've talked a little bit about bringing the Te Kaha precinct to life as an entertainment precinct. And that's kind of a longer term strategic opportunity, I guess, for council and us to work together on.
Yeah, we asked the question this morning of the designers for an update on what the outside looks like, because for a big day out style event, you could have 2 stages inside, 1 outside, but you don't want to design your outside that precludes that.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, there's a nice big concrete pad out in that northern kind of
mosh pad.
Yeah, a bit of mosh.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Cool.
thank you. Any Yanni?
Yeah, thank you. I mean, I was just wondering, are you working with Christchurch and Z around their urban development function to actually get some development that will raise revenue on that stadium site, particularly for the surplus pieces of land that haven't got any sort of use?
Not at this stage. So no, there's only one piece of land that council own, which is that northeast corner. And at this stage, no, we've not progressed any of that other than some very initial kind of conversations with council, not Christchurch.
Right, but like Okay, yeah. So if we wanted things like a car park built or some extra hospitality or something to generate revenue, we're best to talk to Christchurch NZ and get them to approach you. Is that kind of the best way to do it, or?
Well, I guess, yeah. I mean, we would obviously be delighted to have that discussion because the ability to create that entertainment precinct is an exciting one. But I guess you'd need to tell us as to how that process would work, which way
I think
round
that
it
might be a
would
good
go.
one for Mary to take off. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And then, I mean, obviously, I know you've given us advice around the ticket levy and being concerned, but for some of us, we see that as a way to raise an offset to some of the operational costs. So, you know, I mean, just to kind of appreciate the advice that you've given previously, but we do it at the town hall at the moment, and Eden Park does it.
Yep.
So why would we not do it here? I mean, why are you so resistant to doing it if other places like Eden Park are doing it? And, you know, if we requested you to look at it, can you just do it, or do you need a formal sort of resolution?
So there's two aspects to it. One is ticket levy at Te Kaha, which is 100% our plan. So we're working out the modelling on that as to how much it is, to what level of ticket should it be applied to, and that's all in our control, right? So we just work with our promoters in order to enable that, and then it's an administrative function in the ticketing. We've done the modelling. We've done some modelling on, let's say, $3 a ticket for tickets over $30. That's about $500,000 a year, just to give you a sort of sense of a number. So those numbers can change. The temporary stadium is more tricky because the venue is challenging at the best of times, and the financial advantage in putting a levy in there now is probably not material enough over the next kind of 18 months to really offset what could then reduce attendance. So that's just a little bit of a compromise, and we're not talking material numbers. We're probably in the order of 100, 150 across the next 18 months. So I just think on balance, albeit we can absolutely look at it, yeah, so there's certainly no resistance when it comes to the new venue.
And do you have ticket levies also at Air Force Museum, Hagley Oval, or Wolfbrook?
No, so just at the arena and the town hall, and obviously plan for the stadium.
Yeah.
Do you want to comment on that, Dan?
Air Force Museum, they don't do ticketed events really. We've had one in the past post-COVID, that was Van Gogh Live. Hagley Oval has a direct ticketing agreement between New Zealand Cricket and Ticket Tech as well. So I guess VO doesn't control ticketing at Hagley Oval, hence why we don't have it. But we've got a land levy at the town hall, land levy at Wolfbrook Arena, and then a heritage levy at Christchurch Town Hall.
How's the arena levy working?
Well, it works well. I mean, it's in lieu of years ago, I used to go and pay $5 or $2 for ticketing, and it caused traffic mayhem, to put it mildly. So pretty much it's an efficient way to gain revenue for part of that land that we obviously occupy with 1,800 car parks. So that's kind of a user pays model, to be honest with that, and it works well.
Yeah, and I think to that as well, you know, it's another factor that we can consider when it comes to meeting some of our sustainability aspirations. You know, we all have we can all contribute in certain ways, and we can share some of that when it comes to ticketed events.
Aaron had a question, I think. And then have you got
It's just a follow on from the levy ones, because Phil has written to Mayor Phil, has written to our neighbouring councils about chipping in for the ongoing cost of the stadium, as you'll be aware of. But it's also been raised around the table. If they don't go for that, then we potentially levy. There's a locals price and a non-locals price. The ticket tech system would allow that, wouldn't it? Because most people are registered.
Yeah, and you can put a regional levy on a ticket.
Yeah.
And, well, just anyone outside of Christchurch, welcome to Christchurch, here's your bill type thing.
Yeah, thanks
but-
for coming.
But that kind of thing is possible going forward, isn't it?
Yeah, there's it is possible. It's a bit harder to govern. I mean, for example, each purchase buys 2.7 tickets on average as well. So we get the data of who's buying the ticket, not who's attending. So that can skew it as well. And then if you updated your ticket tech data in the case of who we use at the moment, and you change your address from Wellington to Christchurch, you would avoid that levy. So you just sort of tighten up the technology, so potential around it, but there's a few constraints that would need to work through. But definitely on the table, but yeah, definitely a bit of risk as
And it
well.
will be subject to gaming. When people say, well, I'm going to buy 50 tickets.
Well, Set Paymark also have the detail that they know the address of every single person that uses the
Okay,
card,
so we
it's-
might park that. But if we get, thank you. Can we just bring up the amendments? So I've got one from Mel and one from Yanni. That's all good in terms of the requesting. Or are you happy with the answer that they're already done it? Or is that entirely up to you? Yeah. So it should. Is it up on the screen?
Yeah.
So just highlight the alternates. Highlight the staff one, please. Yeah, that's already been answered. Are you happy to not put that up?
Yeah, it's probably just in reference to the Hagley Oval per se. We manage the Hagley Pavilion and Hagley Oval for international cricket, and so Canterbury Cricket deliver domestic events, cricket events at the Oval. So that would obviously we can we'll be looking at our venue infrastructure and our waste management strategy across the portfolio, but that would probably just need to be amended for what we do have control of.
Events.
Do you want to just remove at Hagley Oval?
Yes.
Yep. Is that happy?
Yep.
So the council requests that VO reviews the waste infrastructure.
Yep.
And ascertains whether it is fit for purpose and encourages maximising. Yeah. So Mel, and then we've got another one there. Yanni, do you still want to put that, given the advice?
Yeah, the second one that staff have done, I think that's good. Yep.
So
You want to keep it?
So we want to report back.
And I think it's called the Apollo Project Stadium.
Do you still want to put that, even though we've had the
Yeah, I think we should get the report back and we can.
right?
Yeah. Sorry, what Mel's saying one thing. What?
We have a 10 to 12 paragraph reply.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I want them to consider doing it. Absolutely.
Okay. All right. Well, so what we'll do, I imagine there's general consensus around Melanie's one.
Yeah.
So, if Mel, are you happy to move the original recommendation? I'll second it, and we'll just include that in it. And then Yanni will just put yours up as an amendment. I'm kind of not. I don't want to debate both of them. I just want to do one discussion, if that's okay. Have you got a second for your amendment?
Yeah, I think he's just gone out of the room though.
That's not my problem. So have you got a? Yeah.
That'll raise $100,000.
You get, yeah. It's just. Oh, sorry, not 6. It's the one below it. Yeah. Oh, sorry, you can't see what I. Yeah.
No.
So let's get that one correct.
Oh, no, I thought you were joking.
I think your phone's ringing outside, Andre.
They're just wondering if there's a seconder to get VO to consider a ticket levy. So
On the old stadium. Even though we've had the advice. Yeah.
So $10,000 report for.
Yeah. But if you, it's entirely your call. But if you don't second it, it fails, and then we don't have to vote on it. So it's that last. Can you see that? Oh, why can I see? Yeah. So that number 7.
Well, that would be requesting something that has been actively considered, isn't it?
yeah.
So which also means there's no harm in actually that in there. Is the other way to look at it.
We're just going to create some work for nothing.
Well, it's work that's already gone up.
And they could
It's work that already
resend the
happened.
email, I guess. If that's the. So, do you want to see?
Change the date.
Have a different date.
It is going to lose.
Yeah. If you want to second it, we can. I'm keen to get this wrapped up.
Yeah, it's something that, to be honest, it needed to be considered 10 years ago, and it's kind of too late now.
Yeah, cool. Okay, so there isn't a seconder that fails. So we'll just we can have a discussion if you want to on the main SOI. So 7 has failed for lack of a seconder. That's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion on the substantive? Yanni.
I just want to refresh councillors to the debate we just had about CCHL and the asking for additional dividends. So again, I come to you with options to raise revenue when you're hearing that a number of our council companies and our venues are needing additional funding to pay for the increased costs. So just hope councillors understand that, you know, we do have options to raise revenue if we choose to look at it. And personally, I mean, I'm disappointed that we're not considering it because there's no doubt that we have put a huge amount of additional money and ratepayer money in to the temporary stadium over many years. And the people that are benefiting by going could easily afford to pay a small sum towards offsetting the cost. The people that are directly benefiting from that facility, I think, should be making a contribution to its running. It seems a very sensible, obvious thing to do, and there are ways to mitigate the impact by having a percentage. And I've just sent around the information too around how much handling fees are. And if you think a little ticket levy of a couple of bucks is going to off-put people when they've got handling fees of $8 in some cases, I think we're dreaming. So, you know, to me, it's a shame that we don't want to raise additional revenue. But I do recognise that Venues Otautahi, the work that they're doing in our city, the events, you know what, I'm really, I find there is a bit of a contradiction, right? We were told from some of the surveys that had been done that there were people not feeling like there was a vibrancy and enough events on in the city. And yet so many events are happening at our Venues Otautahi facilities. And in fact, if you look, quite often, a lot of them are sold out as well. So there is huge demand for a lot of these amazing events that are happening in our city. And there is a lot going on. So I do want to acknowledge the really good work that Venues Otautahi is doing around our facilities and particularly the town hall, which I know at the time that we agreed to repair it was seen as being a bit contentious. But if you look at the number of events specifically that are being held in there, it is an amazing facility that's well loved and well used and doing amazing things. So thank you to Venues Otautahi for the work that they do in looking after these facilities. I'm happy to support the substantive, although I do think as a council we do, and I'm glad to see it in here, we do need to start thinking about fundraising for the new stadium, and we need to make that a real priority because we can offset some of the cost by doing creative things, but we need to start doing that with a lot more effort, I think, at a governance level than we have in the past.
Okay, just very briefly, I don't think anyone disagrees with the sentiment of user pays in terms of these facilities that are coming through, and it's really heartening that we're going to be doing that at the new at Te Kaha. But that resolution doesn't ask to raise revenue. That asks for VO to request considering introducing it, which they have already done. So it would be sort of like creating work for nothing. I mean, if there was a resolution that did say that, you know, we require a report back from VO on that so that council can make a decision, that would be entirely different. So it's kind of like what we've asked for is not necessarily what's been put to the table. So so unfortunately, I just would hate people to be conflated because this actually isn't asking for what Yanni has talked about. So we'll put that to the vote. All in favour? Against? That's carried. Thank you very much for coming in. Thanks to the directors as well. Great. We might break now till 2 o'clock over the lunch break, and then we'll come back and go into public excluded for the last couple of items.
On item 2.